Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Trench Warfare Performance and our first interview for our channel. My name is Casey Pierce, head coach and founder of our great organization specializing in training offensive and defensive linemen. My first guest is a former teammate of mine as well as a colleague. His name is Jake Gruber. Jake was one hell of a lineman for New Jersey in his state and high school, was also a very good offensive lineman and semi-pro as well as arena. He is now currently a defensive line coach for high school students, and we're happy to have him here to do a nice little interview. So, Jake, thank you for coming, and just start off a little bit with some of the things that you did in high school.
Thanks, Case. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor. So a little bit in high school. Went to Eastern High School in New Jersey. Um, Started 3 years there. We were pretty successful for my first two. Then we, had a downside. But yeah, I enjoyed every minute of it. I got recruited out of high school, and I couldn't have asked for something better to do while I was in high school. So I found my love and passion for football in high school, definitely.
Yeah, and you were rated as one of the best linemen coming out of New Jersey, which is definitely an impressive feat. What was the main thing that you had to work on specifically? Do you think it was the strength that you had to work on, or was it the technique, or was it a combination? Like for you personally, what kind of stuck out to you as like, okay, I need to master this?
Well, coming into high school, I've never played football before, so I was kind of, blind to the game. Didn't really know much about it, so I don't pretty much everything from scratch. The technique was definitely something that I worked on. Um, I consider myself a natural athlete, so I kind of picked up on it quick. I worked on it every day, you know, throughout all my 4 years of high school. Wouldn't say it was perfect, but they got the job done. Um, One of my strengths was being a strong player in high school. Um, I went to the gym 5 days a week. I was it was only required three, but I went five. And then I just worked on my technique and getting in shape every year. And I liked watching film. Film was very important for me to watch. Not only older guys, but my opponent, seeing what their weakness was, seeing what I'm going against. What can I expect? A lot of it goes into the game. So it's not just being a good athlete and that'll create success. There's a bunch more stuff you gotta do. You gotta work on your technique, watch film, work out, be in shape. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you there. Um, so for you as an offensive lineman, I know that you at one point had like 120 something pancakes within a season. Was that more so because of your technique and your strength, or was that simply a mentality? Like, is that something that an offensive lineman can kind of build into their mentality, or do they need to be strong, need to have good technique? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think definitely being strong and having good technique plays a big part of it. But you got to be nasty. I mean, you gotta want to destroy the dude in front of you. You gotta want to bury him into the ground, and you gotta build off that. It's like scoring a touchdown. It's something that you could look forward to, and it's something that you could praise yourself about. So pancaking was something I love to do, and it pretty much made say I'm the better dude than you are. So you're gonna you're gonna be in for it for the whole night. So it's something I definitely fed on throughout the games, and it definitely creates good film. To go out and get recruited, but also it makes yourself feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that's overlooked to the general public for offensive line. Now that announcers and stuff are highlighting guys like Quentin Nelson and Laramie Tunsil and Lane Johnson, Joe Thomas, now that they're starting to get their recognition, now it's not just, oh, well, they didn't give up any sacks. Now it's, talking about pancakes, and pancake culture is really caught on for offensive linemen, which I think is great. But I still think with defensive lines, sometimes they don't get the credit that they deserve too, simply because even though they might not make the sack or they might not make the tackle, I feel like the defensive line has almost as critical of a job as the offensive line, but the defensive line can get a little bit more credit when they do get called because obviously they can sack, they can score a touchdown, potentially interception, that sort of thing. Um, but for you personally, from going from the offensive line mentality, how do you translate that over into your coaching of defensive linemen?
So it's just as an offensive lineman, I know my weaknesses. I know a lot of offensive linemen's weaknesses. And that's what I teach my guys is how to take advantage of the weaknesses. A lot of offensive linemen struggle with guys who have really good hands. If you can't put your hands on someone as an offensive lineman, they're pretty hard to block. If you have good hands, and then you have that speed that comes in, that's always really important for D linemen. You see it a lot more today in the NFL or college. Guys are quicker, they're a lot quicker. They're running 4.5s, stuff like that, which is like not very heard of in the past. So I definitely work on speed with my guys, good hands, and staying low and being aggressive. My guys got to know, when it's 3rd and 1, something like that. We gotta bury the offensive line. If it's 3rd and 12, we got to use our speed rush skills. So I teach my guys. You guys gotta know about the game a little bit yourself. You guys gotta know what to expect. But mostly my drills are just working on what beats a good offensive lineman, and that's pretty much how I translate me from being an offensive lineman to being a defensive line coach.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like you have an insight of how to beat the other person, which in the sense, some people are like, oh, well, he was, a great offensive lineman, he would be a great coach for offensive line. Well, sometimes it plays in the reverse, and you can actually be a great defensive line coach because you know how to beat the opponent because you had to go up against it. So it's kind of like you're the perfect antidote to be able to apply to defensive linemen. Like, hey, I was really good at doing this stuff. Here's what I struggle with, and I think that's something that sometimes gets overlooked. Um, One of the other things I was going to ask you because we've talked about it before. You sent me some highlight film of the junior that you had, and he clearly, when you look at the tape, he was one of the best defensive presences on the field, and he just looked incredibly insane. I'm pretty sure you told me he broke New Jersey sack record or was close to doing that. Correct?
Yeah. So I had a kid. We played 8 games. He had about 14 sacks. Um, I know I think first 3 games he had like 9 of them, and it was after that we were going against teams that were just basing their offense around him. We were going against teams that were getting the ball out within like 1.4 seconds, and he's still hitting the quarterback. So he didn't really have a chance much to get more sacks throughout the year. We were destroying teams in the beginning of the year on the defensive side of the ball. My defense led sacks in the state. I had him with like 14 sacks. I had another kid with like 9. And then my 2 other starters, I think, had 5 each. So it was just like we were getting after the quarterback, and teams started to adjust to that. So our sack numbers dropped. We were averaging like 9 a game, and they dropped to like 4. And it was just all because of this one kid. This kid was just, getting after the quarterback every time. And he was so fast and his hands were so good. He just couldn't block him off the edge. He's a tall kid. He's like 6'2", which is decent size defensive lineman. He's only a junior, first year playing defensive line. So he was really impressive for what he did. Um, he wasn't close to break. I don't know if he was close to breaking a record or not, but he was in the lead of the entire state in sacks. And then teams just really started adjusting around them. They didn't want to take the chance of holding the ball and getting a strip sack or whatever it may be. But I really look forward to coaching him again. My entire defensive line pretty much returns, so I'm looking forward to coaching all of them. hopefully we can make some more noise. Hopefully we'll have a full season, potentially, can have playoffs this year and see what we can do from there. But yeah, he's been a joy to coach, and he's very coachable, and I love having him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that is going to not only help with that, like, because teams are going to adjust. Because when I watched the film of him that you sent me, I mean, he just stuck out to me as being clearly like a head and shoulders above everyone else. And I think when the rest of your defensive line, um, they might not catch up to him per se in terms of his raw talent and skill, but once that they start to come into their own, like they have a year together with each other, they've been training and it's been more under your tutelage, I think that you'll start to see those sack numbers increase even when teams adjust against you. Um, and that's something that I look forward to because I'd love to see where your defensive line ends up with a full season under their belts and under your coaching. The other thing I was going to ask you as a coach, like how can you identify a good young athlete that is coachable? Because we have athletes that are very talented, but some of them just, especially at the high school level, some of them just aren't there to where it's I got to get better. Like, what characteristics do you look for? What body language do you see that makes a player stand out, and in your head you say, okay, this is something that I can really work with and mold into something special?
So for my DNs, I look at just being athletic, guys who are quick. Um, I can teach them technique. I can't make them a better athlete as much as I can make them more technically sound. So, I try my best to get my guys' footwork and their speed up, and the different techniques in them. For D tackles, inside guys, I look for who's the most physical. So usually within the first week of practice, I can see that. Um, so a lot of things I emphasize throughout practice, a lot of things I want to see the guys do, and the guys who do it, they get the chance to play. So going into the summer, it's really just seeing who works hard, who wants to be there, who's a team leader, who is going to pick up the guy that's down. I look for those type of leadership skills going into camp. And then once we get into camp, we start rolling, and I just see, who's my top guys. Like I said, lucky enough for me, I'm returning all my guys, so it's going to be hard for a young kid coming in to compete for a starting spot. But everyone has that opportunity. I'm not going to hold that against anyone. I can the kid who has 14 sacks. If I get guys that are better than he is, guys that are outworking him, then those are the guys I'm going to play. But um, when it comes down to it, my guys are a unit. I teach them, to be a unit. That's how we create success, is by being, one instead of being four, and that's pretty much all it goes into. So when it comes into camp, um, I just see who really stuck out with that leadership role, and who put all their effort in, and those are the guys that get the first opportunity because they put the work in so far. So they get their shot, and then they miss their shot up. They become lazy, and it becomes someone else's opportunity. That's just how it goes. That's how coaching is.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said there. I mean, for me personally, growing up, I wasn't the most talented. The ability was there, but I just needed someone that was there to believe in me. And my high school coach was that for me. So I think specifically for young coaches at the high school level, it's very important that you try to build your players up. Like, obviously, everyone wants to win, but the main thing is that you're building these kids and young men up so that way they understand that, hey, this guy believes in me. My coach believes that I can do this. And I think that goes back to what you said about your defensive line working as one unit, is that everyone believes and trusts in each other. Like, in the back of the head, the guy might be like, okay, I stand out here, but my brothers are doing their job as well. So I
Right.
definitely think that that's something that's very well put with what you're trying to do. Um, and the last thing that I'll ask to kind of wrap this up. So in terms of like college, CFL, um, XFL, all that stuff, there seems to be, and I know people at home might not realize this, but it seems like outside of the NFL, there's kind of a shortage of really good quality offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I just kind of wanted to ask you about that personally, about why you think that is. Like, is it because there's not enough talent? Is there anything like that? Because I have people ask me, like, well, Casey, I can keep playing, but out of my class, from when I played at Shippensburg University, even though I left early due to injury, there's only a couple people that I know that are still playing at any sort of level or trying to make it to the NFL or anything like that. So I wanted to kind of touch base with you on that and see what your opinion was.
Yeah, so I think the toll it takes on your body. It's it's a rough sport. Everyone gets nicks here and there, and some people get injured, unfortunately. But people got to go to work on Monday. If a lot of people aren't getting paid for it, people got to make a living, and what it comes down to whether it's worth that risk, of getting hurt and being out of work or whatever it may be. But yeah, it just takes too much of a toll on the body. I think as guys get older, and semi-pro, you and I seen a shortage of linemen in there. Um, sometimes teams even in the arena have a shortage of linemen. It's just guys, just don't want to take that risk of getting hurt. We're getting older. Their chances in the NFL, going down, whatever it may be. And they just lose that interest of, playing and taking that risk. And then there's other guys who want to prove a point. I'm still here. I still want to play. I still have a chance. And, it's good for them. I 100% support them. And I think, they should do everything they can to, achieve their dreams. But, these other guys, it definitely takes a toll on your body. So that's most likely the reason of shortage. Other than that, guys just lose the love of the game, I guess. You stop playing for 2, 3, 4, and it just adds on 5, 6. You know what I'm saying? It just adds on, and you're just done with it. So, good way for me to stay in. I still play a little bit, and I love coaching. Keeps me in the game. It's not like playing, but I mean, it's definitely keeps you revolved around the game. So I definitely love it. Definitely love coaching. That's something I always look forward to, and I'll continue to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And coaching, whether you do it for reasons of becoming like a college coach, NFL coach, a really good high school coach, I feel no matter what the reason is for coaching, at the end of the day, you're working to develop not only athletes but people, and I think that's sometimes overlooked a lot. Some people will sacrifice developing character for um, developing just really good athletes. And I think that was the case like back in like the 80s and 90s in football, because you saw like a lot of guys with character faults, getting arrested, potentially murdering people and still being able to play in the NFL. But I think the NFL has done like a good job of cracking down on that. And I think coaches, like Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney, um, Ryan Day at Ohio State, like a lot of those guys, James Franklin, a lot of these guys at these big college programs are really emphasizing that, football is not the end all be all. You want to be a good person outside of it. And I think that's the stereotype that's slowly changing about athletes, is that, these guys are good people. They're not just meatheads, they are athletes. And I think that applies more and more to offensive and defensive linemen, because now people are really starting to understand that the game really is won in the trenches. And that's mainly why I started trench warfare performance, was because I've truly embraced that when you're in it, whether it's at the high school, college, professional, semi-pro, any level, that there has to be a mentality. Yes, obviously you have to have a love of the game, but once you're in those pads on the field, there is an absolute mentality that whichever side of the ball you're on, you're going to beat your opponent. You're not going to be perfect, but you're going to go after it like you're perfect, and eventually you're going to end up catching success. I mean, that's why I love Vince Lombardi personally. One quote that's really stuck out to him, and one quote that I use with my program is, "We will chase perfection, knowing that we will not catch it, but we will in the process end up catching excellence." And I think that's something that a lot of people, because I was a big perfectionist, and that's something that really drove me not only to be a coach, but it drove me in sports. But I will put so much pressure on myself that I would get so angry when I messed up. But over the years, especially this year being a pro arena player, it's really opened my eyes like, hey, you're going up against great levels of competition, and you will get beat. If you look at the pros in the NFL, those guys get beat, but they also win a lot too. That's why they're getting paid to do that. And if they're not doing that, they're out of the league. And I think allowing young kids to understand that will help them in life, because a lot of people think like, oh, instant gratification. I want to get everything, especially with the younger generations. But as offensive and defensive linemen, we tend to understand more so than other guys that it takes work, that we can't just rely on natural talent. We can't just rely on that. Now, some guys can, but they generally get weeded out, whether it's in high school, college, in the pros. And that's something that I think that as an offensive and defensive lineman, having that mentality of trench warfare of it's going to be up and down, but you will win the war in the end. I think that's not only a great message to keep as a coach, which I think you've done with your defensive line, but I think that's good for all coaches moving forward, as well as for guys that are looking to get into it. Because no one goes into football saying, "Oh yeah, I want to be a lineman." Me, I wanted to be a quarterback, and that's something that I think people generally often overlook. It takes a very special type of person to not only be a defensive lineman, but also an offensive lineman. I think people are starting to realize that now. It's getting more recognition in the NFL. You see more guys getting in the Hall of Fame because of it. Um, so I guess the last thing that I'll end on here, I know you're a big Packers guy. So in your mind, it doesn't have to be the Packers per se, but like, who's like your go-to pro offensive lineman or lineman that you like to watch? We'll go with your top two offensive linemen and then your top two defensive linemen.
Hard one. Top two. I mean, number one, I gotta go Bakhtiari. Um, Not just being a Packers fan, but his technique is just phenomenal. I watched the film on him against Mac, and he was just destroying Khalil. Khalil couldn't create pressure. He's pancaking him, and it's just something that is beautiful as a offensive, just a lineman in general to watch. So Bach is definitely my number one guy. I'm gonna go with two. Two's a hard one. I was a big Alex Mack guy as a center growing up. Now, I definitely like watching Quentin Nelson. He's just a nasty player. I mean, he definitely leaves it all every snap of the play. So, I mean, if I had, pick a guy to go with, it would be Quentin Nelson besides Bakhtiari, just because as an offensive lineman, you just gotta love that play, you know, being nasty and just getting after it. D lineman, I think hands down the best D lineman in the league's Aaron Donald. There's not much to argue with that. You know, he's not my favorite guy, but I love watching him play. You can't really teach what he does because he's just, you know, he's like unreal. He's so fast and strong, and he's technically there with his technique. Um, yeah, he's definitely first ballot Hall of Famer. Beside my favorite D lineman of all time, I got to go Reggie White, longtime Eagle, obviously Packer. Just nasty with the way he played. He's my number one defensive guy of all time. I think he changes the game in, a lot of ways for the D lineman. He's really one of the first guys to get that recognition, and he definitely fulfilled that spot. Rest in peace to him. You know, wish I would have got to watch him play more, but it is what it is. And my number two D lineman guy, I gotta go with Watt. I'm a Wisconsin guy, so coming out of Wisconsin, I had high hopes for him, and injuries definitely did him bad. But before that, he's like Aaron Donald. He was just unstoppable with stuff he was doing on the field. Even coming on some opportunities on offense, score touchdowns was pretty cool to watch. But yeah, Watt's a good guy to watch. He works very hard. Everyone knows that who pays attention. He's a hard worker. He's got a nasty streak to him, which kind of plays a part of his injuries. But he leaves it all every time he's on the field, and he's just a guy I've always loved watching. And that's probably it for my two D line guys. O line, I could talk about them all day, but I'm not going to go there. But yeah, that's my four guys: Bakhtiari, Nelson, Reggie White. I throw in an all-time guy, and then JJ Watt.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And, you really can't argue with a list like that. There's so many greats, but, a lot of these guys that we're talking about are generational Hall of Fame level talent, especially Quentin Nelson. I mean, knock on wood. But, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to have a very, very long career, personally.
For
But yeah,
sure.
absolutely. But hey, Jake, I appreciate you coming on here. Like I said, for those of you tuning in, this is Trench Warfare Performance. This has been Jake Gruber tuning in with us live. My name is Casey Pierce. We're going to keep these interviews rolling. We're going to be bringing lots of great guys and individuals to you to give you guys the best resources, and to make sure that you guys are getting the best. If you want to hear more from Jake or anything like that, please feel free to let me know. I'll put his socials at the end of this video, and show some of his high school and accolades that he got. And we want to thank you again. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And this is Casey Pierce. Catch you next time. Jake, thank you so much for participating. It was really great to hear from you and get your perspectives.
Thank you, Casey. It was a pleasure. Hopefully, we can do this again sometime. I really look forward to that. And yeah, I appreciate, you having me here. Brother, you take care.